Welcome to Consulting Mastery, where we help B2B consultants master the business of consulting. I'm Carrie.
And I'm Ahmad. Join us as we explore the art of delivering outstanding client value, earning a higher income, and thriving in today's marketplace. Hey folks, welcome back to the show. We've got a bit of a different vibe for you here today on Consulting Mastery. Well, Carrie and I love hopping on here and love talking shop and sharing some of the lessons and the insights that we've gained from coaching and consulting and mentoring B2B consultants just like you over the years. I think it's really important that you hear some stories from the consultants themselves. And so what we're going to be doing over the next few months or so is we're going to be handpicking some of the more compelling stories from our client group and our alumni group, the folks that have built considerable, successful consulting businesses, the folks that maybe you would look up to and would aspire to build something similar to what they've built that you can learn lessons from. I think sharing those stories with you and giving you the real, unfiltered viewpoint on what it took to build a consulting business from a consulting founder themselves is going to be really valuable to you. So today, the first installment in that series, we have a former client of ours named Jason Bryll of Parable Associates. I will jump into the interview right now, and I will come back at the end and I'll debrief some of the lessons here with you. Here's Jason Bryll. So Jason, thanks for jumping on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. And as somebody who's been also watching your journey as well, it's been interesting. I've just been a student of small businesses and consulting for a long time now. So happy to participate any way I can in a conversation like this.
Awesome. Let's level set folks on some of the basics of, what is Parable Associates? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so we are a data analytics firm specialized in the U.S. healthcare industry. And we help our clients, physician practices primarily, make more money, treat their patients more efficiently, staff and deploy their staff more effectively. And so we use data and analytics to help them make those decisions to manage their practice. And the way that I view it, because I'm not a clinical person, like I'm a technical, I'm a database and BI, business intelligence, specialty background person. This is my way of helping the healthcare community here in the US. I believe that if the practices are successful, they will add services, they'll expand within their communities. And so our whole business is dedicated to this industry so we can improve the access to care in the US industry or in the US market. Beauty.
Can you give folks a snapshot of where are things now? And I'll let you decide what you want to share and what you're comfortable sharing. But let's give them a snapshot of what kind of business are you running now?
Yeah. So I think to answer that, I'll do a little bit of history as well. So I founded the business in 2018. And in 2018, it was me. It was a business of one, and it was a pure consulting business. For the most part, I was an outsourced analyst. My technical skill set of knowing how to write SQL code, extract data, and tell a meaningful story with the data, that's where we started. I'll do a massive fast forward. And so that was 2018. Here we are in 2024. And what we are is we are a shop with 18 employees, and we're dedicated to implementing mostly Power BI, which is a Microsoft product, into healthcare practices through an implementation consultancy. But the unique thing, the thing that makes us different is we are able to articulate the healthcare story. We're one of the things that I learned along that journey was hyper focusing on an industry, on a talk track, on a talk point, on tools. If you have a brand of tools that you use, by getting hyper focused, we are now a solution company where if you're going to do any of these things, you come to us. But I have a team of IT resources, project managers, practice consultants that help people generate more money for their practice, all sorts. We're kind of across the board, but we are only working with U.S. healthcare practices.
Fantastic. I want to come back to a few of the things you mentioned in a minute, but first I want to hear the origin story. So take me back to 2018. How did this thing start?
Yeah. So I have always had the entrepreneurial bug. There's an itch I just had to scratch. And I'm a former consultant. So I've done, I worked for a company at the time, it was called the Creative Health. And then I worked for a company called Med Assets. They've both since changed names if you look at the history of them. And then the last stop that I had was one called Alvarez and Marsal. And all of those organizations that were consulting, I was going in and helping organizations analyze their data. I did a lot of spreadsheet work. But what I found is I was able to find opportunities, things that they may have had a gut feel about, but they didn't know the root cause of a problem or a bottleneck in their practice. And I was able to pull the data out and identify those trends and those commonalities and do it exceptionally well, to be honest about it. And there's a lot of origin story there, but I was the one who was going in on Saturdays, and I was salaried. It didn't matter. I was going in on Saturdays, working my tail off, not with the vision of starting my business, but just the vision of getting better at my craft. And so fast forward to 2018, and I have this itch I can't scratch. Well, a lot of my customers would say, after the project was over with said consulting company, my favorite part was Jason's analytics. It was this leave behind, this package of templates and tools, again, mostly Excel templates that were being left at these hospitals and practices. And I said, I think there's something there. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to leap from my cushy salaried position with high upside. I'm going to take my network that I have. I'm going to try this thing out and see what happens. But I did not have a product. I didn't have a solution. I just had my talent and skills and a little bit of my network to get started off.
So how and where did the first few deals come from?
So the first deal was somebody that was in my network, and the second deal was hard. So the person in my network, I'll give a little background on that. So I did a little bit of subcontracting because it was so hard to get my first deal. The reality is I couldn't give my services away for free. Like I didn't know what I was doing, first of all, but I couldn't do anything to get my foot in the door. And then the first person came along and said, okay, we're interested, but we're a healthcare organization, so we need to sign all these agreements, a BAA, an NDA, a MSA. And I'm like, didn't see that coming. Seems like 101 level stuff. But a business associate agreement, so you can look at our healthcare data. Standard requirement. I never had to do one before. So I did some subcontract work to try to get my feet under me and figure it out. And the second one came through referrals. And so it was, I did so good at that first client, word got out, and I got my second one. And then my second one became my third one. And I started my business. At the time, it was mostly just me. Really through referral based expansion. And the other part that really helped me was I wasn't losing clients. I wasn't going from project to project. I had provided such a high level of service that I constantly had projects from all of those customers. So it started stockpiling and compounding over time. And so, when you think about, I try to get my first project, try to get my second project for our business. One thing I wish I had a little more forethought into was, how do I view myself as a recurring service? How do I go from, here's the thing I'm working on, to the maintenance of it? And that's its own type of a solution. But I sold and resold and upsold existing. I did a lot of inside sales, I think might be the industry term for it. But I did a lot of upselling with existing customers. But I still work with the initial client I had mentioned from 2018, still work with them today.
So I'm curious, how did you see yourself in the early days? In the sense of like, did you see yourself as an independent consultant that would just remain independent? Did you have this larger aspiration to build a firm? How did you see the business back then?
Yeah, I mean, it was more of the former. So I saw myself as a consultant trying to sell myself and my own services, and have the flexibility of managing my own schedule, all the things that are glamorized as this type of a thing. But I quickly found, for me personally, that wasn't a reality. It basically was a glorified job, and I just was contract without benefits for these organizations. And so pretty quickly over time, I didn't know the answer yet in 2018 and 2019, but I knew that there was a business here where I would have to elevate myself and have a team of other data analysts and data professionals, and turn it into more of a firm. I started off with I have young kids. I had just had my kids in 2017. I have twins. And so I just had my kids at a young family. I wanted to get off the road from all the consulting, work remotely. And so it was more of like the lifestyle play. But I realized very quickly that the lifestyle wasn't very good or sustainable by myself. Incredibly hard, incredibly challenging. And I'd be hard for me to go back to that mode.
And so were those first few deals very much framed as a contractor, bill by the hour, time for money, work for us for 40 hours a week kind of deal?
Absolutely. It's exactly what it was. And, it's very apparent what the challenge is there. So when you're working for money for hours like that, like I was in providing those services, I didn't have the time available to create marketing, create a rinse and repeat solution, to invest in onboarding and training new staff members, to take over that hourly, right? Because I could find people that would do it for less rate. So I could make margin on them right out of the gate. But the problem was finding that person who's going to come over to this small startup of one, and be technical. They're going to have other opportunities. So recruiting was a challenge. So yes, I was trading time for money. And the reason why it was such a poor lifestyle was because I was working all day and then writing my cold emails and everything at night and trying to drum up new business or the next gig or whatever, and recruiting, and all of that happened at night. Next thing you know, you're not working 40 hours a week. You're working 100. You're working nights. You're working weekends. There's many stories I can tell you of the first few years plural, of me staying up literally all night. My Fitbit, I think, averaged 2 or 3 hours of sleep per week. Sometimes it was tough, but yeah, that's why it was a very poor solution to that lifestyle I thought I was building.
So take me through. That's how you get started, right? And that's not uncommon. That's how a lot of folks get started.
Yeah.
How did you the next major milestone kind of break out of that model and find a better model?
Yeah. So there was some trial and error in it. And there was also some realization that I needed to focus on it as a business. It wasn't going to survive if I didn't do it differently. And so, you take those positions, trading hours for money for a period of time, knowing that, hey, this isn't sustainable. But if you can put in the extra work, like I did on nights and weekends, I was able to, in 2019, hire an additional analyst and developer, BI developer. In 2020, I was able to onboard 2 additional resources. And then I want to say like 8 come in the next year. So like we had that ramp up. The reason why was I had a little bit of margin from those first ones. And then we started investing in certain things. Like right now we have what we're calling an accelerator. And so let's just say you're a dermatology practice here in the US, there's a good chance you have a common EMR platform. I won't go into all the names on this call, but there's a good chance you have this common EMR platform. And it's a great platform. And we've built a solution that now we can implement really rapidly, something that would take arguably most customers a year to build at best, if they have a data team, 6 months to build from scratch. And we can do it in 4 weeks with most of our customers. It kind of depends on their complexity, but we can really accelerate it. Well, now that's a solution that is marketable. There's a process behind it. We have our own implementation process. We have maintenance agreements to support it. And there's tons of benefits from the customer because they're still allowed to do custom reporting within our data model. They're actually allowed to ask us for help and support and submit tickets, ask questions. We do recorded training services. And so now we basically took all that grit that was per hour and we've converted it into a fixed implementation cost with a bunch of peripheral services and support mechanisms around it to help that practice grow. So now we're a solution platform, right? We went from the hourly thing that was grit and determination. We found the commonalities and we said, let's build something that's sustainable, something that everybody will need or want or benefit from. And then once they see the benefit, they can determine themselves if they really want it or not. But we think the ROI is there. We've proven it over and over.
So you went from trading time for money and implementing and doing hands-on work to having, a product, if you will, what you call a solution, what we call, obviously inside 90 Day Pipeline, a results mechanism, something very tangible with a very clear value proposition that is no longer about how long it took you to put it together, but it's more about the use case and the value that's created when you install it in the organization. I'm curious, how did you arrive at that being the solution that was going to be the focal point of the firm?
It's a great question. Sorry for the ums all the time with answering these, but like a lot of it is, it's so organic and it takes so much time. It's not, there's no boom, spark of lightning that says, this is it, this is my destination. I think for me and for my leadership team, which we've now, like I said, grown so much that I have others in my organization that we also kind of co-make decisions on the business, and we have people to kind of think through items. I think what we realized is the hourly consulting business is incredibly hard to manage, maintain, staff. Staffing models are not predictable. You may have a massive project that starts up, and the client says, I want to start next week. And do you have the resources? Are they trained up? And that project may be 6 months. And so, do you have the next project for them? Right. So we knew that all of those pains of being in the consulting and money for hours and that type of world, all that pain that it has, it was so hard, and it was hard to market because we were everything to everybody. And so if you had a data challenge and any EMR and any practice and any specialty, we were your go-to resource, and we could problem solve and figure it out. All of which was true and all of which we executed on, but it was painful to get there as a business owner and leader. So I think we did our research. We looked at what others are doing in the industry. We looked at what if we took all of our best traits of everything, what could we do that's more efficient and have more clarity in the marketing process and how we communicate with customers. And that's where we determined really building more of that platform. And so we have, 20 reports right out of the gate. If you own your own practice and you're like, I can't manage my AR, I don't know which insurance claims are outstanding, my team productivity is all over the map, we can very quickly implement a solution that says, here's all the answers, and it's visualized for you in a different way. And so we've gotten great reviews from our customers on certain reports that we were developing and building. And we took the best of the best and put it into, this is now our solution. And rather than, charge for hours, we were getting faster and faster and faster every project that we did. And so it was more about anchoring the pricing against the value it was driving. And that gave us the upside of being able to invest more into it. So I don't like, that was another realization for me that was quite important as we built the platform. The margin part of it, if you're just willing to settle with that one piece, and you can take all that profit and put it in your pocket, that's great. But for us, when we have those implementations that we've accelerated, when we have all that value we're driving very quickly, we're actually building out and releasing new reports. We're adding new training services. We built a platform called Parable Academy, and we're looking to expand it with different things for the practice, for training, on-demand training to support it. And so it's actually in everybody's best interest. It's in the industry's best interest for us to accelerate this portion of the platform, because we continually want to expand and add more services and more offerings to help our clients. We're adding more solutions to the pains that they're feeling without getting shiny object syndrome and say like, oh, we're going to go into a completely different industry and solve somebody else's problem with data. No, we're still focused on healthcare. And we recognize by working with our customers, there's other things we can help accelerate. So we're reinvesting into those.
I'm curious in terms of time frame. Started in 2018, it's now 2024. When did this specific solution that we're talking about, when did that become the focal point on the time horizon, roughly?
Yeah. Being purely transparent, it was Q4 of last year. So we were doing custom development all the way up until that point. And again, it's hard to do custom development. It's hard to migrate away from it as well. And we haven't completely, and I don't know that we ever do. To me, I think that the audience that we're targeting, which is typically private equity backed organizations and larger enterprise, specialty groups, they need it. Like, that's why they're not satisfied with the off the shelf solutions like the SaaS or the software models that they can just buy and turn on. It's not flexible enough. It's not dynamic, and it doesn't speak to them as a business. So we still have those elements of it. And we were living on big projects, small volume, big projects for the first 5 years of the business. And then we said we wanted to take, I heard it called this before. It might be something different, but I heard it's called the Tesla approach, where you have like the first car they came out with was well over $100,000, and it was a super fast sports car. It did one thing really well, electric, and went fast. Then they had the Model S, and so then they started saying it's still higher dollar, but it's attainable with the tax rebates and blah blah blah. Then the Model 3, and then so they changed their audience, but they were still electric cars. They still had the same mission and values. And so that's where we started out with this high dollar custom, approach. And then we said, okay, now we're willing to go one step down. And now if you have 20 providers, there's still probably ROI. The reality is a one provider practice probably would not benefit from us at this point in time. I'm here to tell you I would love to get there in a number of years, but as of right now, we did make a mechanism that is able to support and generate ROI and has the proper pricing model associated to it to go one layer down. Because of the lessons we learned up here, we were able to bring it down. That was just as of last year. It's been incredibly successful for us and especially for our customers. And we look to expand upon that right now before we even think about going a step further down that chain.
At some point in this journey, and maybe you could pinpoint it to a specific segment of the journey. Maybe it's ongoing. You tell me. But you've had to make this leap between technical person to business owner, founder, strategist. What was challenging about making that transition?
The biggest challenge for me, I've always had an interest and obsession with business in general. And in the healthcare sector as well. So I've had a passion for the industry. I've had a passion for general business. I come from, my father was a small business owner, local type of business. It was a printing industry business in Michigan. So I already had kind of this like appreciation for business ownership, and so on. My challenge was actually getting out of the weeds. So I led the business and I also did the development of solutions. I did a lot of solutioning with my customers. It was that transition of saying, okay, and there came a point in time where I was forced out. My team forced me out. So this wasn't even a realization of my own. This was my team saying like, we need you to do visionary stuff. We need you to think bigger because you do that. We need you to go talk to the executive team at Client ABC. And so I got pushed out, and admittedly, I tried to come back in at some point. And what I noticed was all of the SQL code and all of the things that they're doing were so much more advanced than anything I was able to personally produce. So even though I had what I would say is I had kind of the MacGyver approach to solving problems. I didn't know it, but apparently I did. Everything worked, and it worked great. And it looked fantastic on whatever it delivered, but it was horribly inefficient in the coding. And so now we've been able to bring in people that are specialists and are significantly better than me. So that transition was the hardest for me, of realizing that I'm not the best at everything. But what I'm best suited for my business is to be that face of the franchise, to be the visionary and provide the direction, and ultimately kind of, get people to produce the best results they possibly can. And what I mean is, we have somebody, I told her before that, I view it as my job to get people to move up to their ceiling. And I have to see their ceiling, right? And I said, I haven't found yours yet. She's really good at what she does. But I view my role now as how do I motivate, encourage, and push people to approach their own personal and professional ceiling in business.
Yeah, you're not a coder anymore. You're a leader, right? It's funny. Yeah. I've always found this to be true, and my story is very similar. Where I was doing all the coaching, all the consulting, and I thought, nobody could replace me, right? And lo and behold, they have, and they're better than me in their discipline and within their expertise. And I've always found that what's bad for my ego is usually pretty good for business. Right.
Yeah.
So bit of a bitter pill to swallow when you realize that, they're actually better than me at these things, but good for business. Right. I'd like you to maybe, looking back on the journey, it's about 6 years and you've obviously grown considerably. And a lot of folks are listening to this and thinking, man, I'd love to I'd love to go from where I am right now to running an 18, 20 person consulting shop, and to be the visionary and to be the leader and to have this team and have this offer and all these things that we're talking about. Can you crystallize for me, 1, 2, 3, if you will, whatever comes to mind, key success factors? Like, what worked for you? What made this possible?
Yeah. It's hard to bubble that up into to 1, 2, or 3. So I'll do the best that I can. I think first is you have to be an absolute expert. And I'm not talking about just, fake it till you make it stuff. You have to be obsessed with the problem that you're trying to solve. And you have to be so good at it that people believe you immediately within the first 60 seconds of talking to you. They know that you are there to solve that problem. And so for me, in the healthcare industry, Parable, my firm, Parable Associates, it was created in 2018, but I had been in healthcare consulting since 2008. And so I had a 10-year head start on all the work, the nights, the weekends, to learn about the industry. Like I said earlier, I spent nights and weekends working. I was also the one that would sit outside of the door of, the VP of consulting, whatever project I was in, and just wait for them to say like, hey, can you help me with this? So whatever it took, I was there. And so I had all of that to become that expert. I was part of different groups, went to conferences. And so I was obsessed with the industry. I'm passionate about it. So that's number one, is you have to, like, I watch videos on YouTube all day. People are watching Netflix. I'm watching YouTube videos on SQL coding and Power BI and then industry topics. I'm listening to an ophthalmology related podcast, one of the specialties that one of our clients is. So I'm obsessed with all of it and learning all of it. I don't have those other TV shows and movies anymore. So that's number one. Number two is execute. And so no matter what it takes to get results, again, nights, weekends, whatever, even if you go beyond billable hours and you eat the cost, which I did countless times, I was able to deliver results because those referrals that come through on the other end are magnificent. Like, that is like, if you have an existing customer go to somebody else and say, hey, we're working with these Parable Associates guys and they're pretty good, you should talk to them. That is now a very hot lead. That's not a warm lead. That's not a cold lead. That's a hot lead. That is your opportunity to lose because they were talking about a pain point that resonated with both of them. And one said, I have a solution, and that solution is these guys. That's important. And so you have to execute, you have to deliver, you have to go above and beyond the expectations. And so those became part of our DNA. I tell my team, our differentiator in the industry is we are all healthcare experts. I only hire healthcare experts. So we are all healthcare experts. That's our differentiator. We're not generalist IT firms. They exist out there. I even say the names of them. I go to clients and I say, if you're talking to other companies that are big name firms like X, Y, and Z, they're probably telling you this. I'm here to tell you we've helped practices just like yours. If you're having, problems with filling your schedule, or if you're in orthodontics and you need to add more starts, and have you tried these marketing strategies? These are conversations that all of a sudden build trust. So obsession with it, and then execution, actually deliver no matter what it takes. And I think those two things will help carry you along the way. And at some point, the third one is figure out how to systematize parts of your business. Otherwise, you're going to be overrun with a lot of hourly work between those two, and you're going to be putting in hundreds of hours every single week, just to survive. Like, that's the reality of the consulting world. It's really hard.
And I think, although you kind of brought it up as a tangential point, my contention here is it's far more central to your success. This idea of healthcare being your focus and that vertical specialization, and that enabling you to compete, well with firms that are more generalists. Because I got to believe, and obviously that's, me, that's our entire philosophy here around positioning. Like, I got to believe from a client's perspective, when they look at you and they go, these guys are healthcare, all healthcare. That's all they do. That's all they care about. That's got to give you a leg up over a more generalist firm.
Absolutely. So, and I'll take it one step further. So there's this concept that, I've been thinking about a lot, which is sometimes you have to shrink to grow. And within our business, we worked with multiple platforms, Tableau, Power BI, Click, all these different platforms, and we've narrowed it down quite a bit since we worked with everything, and that's been helpful to us. From a healthcare specialty standpoint, and our target audience, another thing that you have to realize is you can go, I mentioned orthodontics earlier, but every specialty has their own nuance to it, and they want to hear you talk about it. They want to hear you as a consultant or solution developer to talk about it. So I can go into an urgent care right here in the US, and I can talk about waiting room times. I can talk about your E&M levels. And I'm imagining that most of the audience I've already lost as soon as I said evaluation management levels, E&M levels. I'm probably lost you when I'm talking about percent of patients with a lab ordered. But you know who's listening and heard it? All of the urgent care is saying, you can do that. You can talk about that. And that's important because now I'm resonating with that individual and I'm connecting in a different way. You don't have to onboard Parable, all right, as a customer. You don't have to onboard us because we already know. If you go work with a generalist, by the way, those generalists, a lot of them do great work, but you're going to be charged a lot of money and it's going to take you a lot longer to get it done, right? Because you're going to have to teach them what a procedure code is or a DRG, a diagnosis code. You're going to have to teach them healthcare. You don't have to teach us anything. We're coming in with solutions and answers and ideas so we can partner with you as a customer. And that's really resonated for the specialties that we work with.
Well, and I think that, common pathways into positioning are one, which you've done which I think is extremely powerful, vertical positioning, focus in the market. A lot of other folks might have focused, and people do this in your market, and in many markets, they focus on the platform. They position around the platform, or the Tableau guys, or the Power BI guys, or the whatever other market, the software tool guys. The problem with that is tools come and go. The market is what's constant. Like if you're betting your business on the growth of a tool, well, what happens when that tool no longer has market share, gets bought out, that company changes focus, that there goes your business. And there's countless stories of where that's happened in many industries. HubSpot, for example, being one more notable one recently. Whereas healthcare, where is healthcare going? Like as long as people get sick, right? Like healthcare is going to be a big growing market, and you're positioned on healthcare, not on the tool or the platform.
Yeah. I mean, it's I will say that I do have some chips on the table in different, let's say, specialties and EMRs and things like that we're really emphasizing, based just on what we see in the healthcare industry, the aging population and the types of services that are needed. So we do see those types of things, and we kind of lean into where the problems are the hardest, or where the pains maybe are the greatest. I shouldn't say problems are the hardest, but where the pains are the greatest. So we can solve those things. But yes, we're very thoughtful in the approach of, we've picked an industry, we picked our lane, and now we're going to be the best at that lane. And the tools and technology, long term, I will tell you, like in the short term, yes, we do a lot of Power BI development, a lot of database and data warehousing and those types of things. But those are all, over time, those all be like features to get to the end result, which is better patient care, better revenue, more expansion and growth opportunities, a more efficiently ran practice. Those are all just features of whatever it is that is the solution of Parable Associates. It is a core feature right now. It is how we think about practice management right now, is using data to drive decision making and know where the opportunities lie. And we believe in it, but it's one piece of the puzzle that we're building.
Well, a metaphor I used recently on this podcast is, clients don't want to buy the hammer, they want to buy the nail in the wall. And I think while a lot of your technical competitors are selling the hammer and the platform, you're selling the nail in the wall and the outcome that clients are looking for. And that's, I got to believe, part and parcel of your success. Last question, Jason, I want to leave you with is there anything that, in retrospect, you might have done differently?
Everybody says hindsight's 20/20, and you can look back and with clear eyes. of course, there are things that I would do differently. I will tell you that everybody's going to have their own journey. There will be painful things along the way, but those pains are good things. There's events that happen as you grow, as you shrink, as you lose key customers, you add new ones. There are things that I would do differently. Yes, probably the biggest one. I think earlier in the process, I would have thought about systemization and solution development and building, and forced my way, even though it may have impacted, let's say, revenue, again, because of hours and so on, there's only so many hours in the day. I would have been more methodical in the approach of saying, hey, let's start this, solution earlier in the process. Let's start this streamlined experience and the patient journey, and not patient, but the customer journey work. I would have started that sooner, because as soon as you unlock that system, then you have clarity around marketing. You have clarity around when new customers onboarded, what do you do next? What's that look like? So I would have started that sooner, but I'll offset it by saying I learned a lot doing it the hard way that made the process better when it came along to us.
Yeah, the journey is the journey in the end, right?
Yeah.
Jason, appreciate you taking the time and sharing this story with us, and looking forward to where things go from here. Hey, it's Ahmad back here again. I hope you loved that conversation with Jason as much as I did. I think he did a really fantastic job of distilling what it takes to build a thriving consulting professional service business. And he's done it in a relatively short amount of time. 5-6 years to get to an 18-20 person firm is not slow by any means. It's pretty significant growth. And I want to just really quickly highlight some of the key lessons that stood out to me from this conversation. Number one is, in Jason's words, hyper focus. He was hyper focused, and his hyper focused got more hyper focused as the years went on. And so he was very committed to focusing in on a vertical, on a market, and on a specific solution that he could build the business around. And that hyper focus yielded the solution that they're now very focused on building and growing. It yielded his commitment to his market, which is healthcare. And the second thing I want to highlight is there's no substitute for passion. The fact that Jason is passionate about healthcare, the fact that he is committed to healthcare as a market, the fact that he cares about the outcomes in healthcare among his clients more than he cares about his business's outcomes, which we didn't talk explicitly about, but you could tell, you could feel it. He cares about the market and their results. That's not a coincidence. That level of passion catapulted his business to where it is today and will catapult it to the next step. And the last thing I want to highlight is, I think for someone like Jason, the transition from becoming a technical consultant to being more of a strategic leader and founder and visionary, you almost made it look easy. And it's not easy, but it is necessary if you want to build a firm. And that's not for everybody. You might not want to build an 18-person firm, and that's okay. But if you want to build a firm, you will have to make that transition from the technical, the tactical, to the strategic, and to the visionary, and to the leader. And I think Jason has done that considerably well. And I would argue what's gotten him here to date is no longer his technical prowess. His technical prowess might have gotten him off the ground, but what's gotten him to where he is today has more to do with his entrepreneurial mindset, his leadership, his visionary capabilities, and his ability to build and lead a team. So hope you found that useful. Again, this is the first installment in this series. We will be bringing on more clients in different industries, different verticals, with different perspectives, different company sizes, all of which is designed to give you some practical learning lessons from folks who have done what you're trying to do. Hope that helps. We'll see you next time.